Plato's most rigorous dialogue reaches us through three narrators. The last of them is Antiphon, a man who has given up philosophy to race horses. Plato buried his sharpest logical exercise behind a narrator who walked away from it. The signal is deliberate. What follows may break the very tools we use to think. Greek philosophy faced two oceans of silence. On one side, Heraclitus. Everything flows, nothing stays still. If reality changes constantly, no word can ever stick to anything. Speech fails. On the other side, Parmenides. All is one, undifferentiated being. If nothing is distinct from anything else, there is nothing to name. Speech fails again. Between these two impossibilities runs a narrow channel, the only place intelligible language can survive. Things must be stable enough to be named, yet distinct enough to be talked about. Plato spends his career walking that channel. The forms are his vessel, and the Parmenides is the dialogue where he tests openly whether that vessel can carry him across. The architecture of the Parmenides is the argument. The dialogue opens with Zeno reading paradoxes that attack pluralism. Flux, he shows, leads to contradiction. Then comes the first quarter. The elderly Parmenides systematically demolishes the young Socrates' theory of forms. Plato offers no rebuttal, none. The remaining three quarters is Parmenides himself parodying strict monism through cascading contradictions. Flux fails, forms fail, stasis fails. The shape of the dialogue maps the navigation. Philosophy threads a needle between two impossibilities, and Plato wants us to feel both walls closing in before he tells us anything else. Look at what Parmenides does to the forms. If a form is shared by many things, is the whole form in each, or only a part? Either splits the form or shatters its unity. How does a particular participate in a form without infinite regress? A third form needed to explain the relation, and a fourth to explain that. And how could a human mind ever grasp forms that exist in a separate realm? Each objection lands. The young Socrates has no answer. Plato writes himself into a corner, and stays there. The theory he built his philosophy on has just been broken in public. Then Parmenides turns the same destructive lens on his own monism. The one both is and is not. It moves and does not move. It is identical with itself and changes its location simultaneously. His interlocutor, a young man named Aristoteles, responds to every contradiction with the same deadpan, two words: most true, most true, most true. This is not agreement, it's parody. The interlocutor cannot follow because the speech is no longer ordinary speech. Dialectic, the careful back and forth of reasoning, has hit its ceiling. Press logic hard enough on the one, and what comes out is no longer thought, it's noise. Here is the key reframe. The forms are not a confident metaphysical doctrine. They are the shattered fragments of the Parmenidean one, the ineffable, undifferentiated unity that strict monism point to. Plato breaks it into pieces: beauty, justice, goodness, equality. Each form is a fracture line, a partial phase of something that whole could never be spoken. By shattering unity into plurality, Plato makes the ineffable approximately speakable. This is metaphysical humility disguised as metaphysical confidence. The forms are not the final answer to reality. They are the best instrument human language has for reaching toward what language cannot directly hold. A broken bridge across the channel between flux and stasis, but still a bridge, and the only one we've got. This is why, in the Republic, Socrates cannot tell Glaucon what the form of the good actually is. Glaucon presses him directly. Socrates dodges. He gives the sun analogy, the divided line, the cave, three images, three approximations, three refusals to state the thing itself. Readers often treat this as Socratic modesty or dramatic teasing. It is neither. Socrates has reached the limit of language. The good, at its core, is what the one was for Parmenides, a unity that the moment you try to name it directly, fractures into the very forms you were trying to explain. Image is all he has left. The crisis ripples outward. If dialectic cannot guarantee that anyone, even a trained philosopher, has actually grasped the form of the good, then we cannot stake the city on a person who claims to have grasped it. The philosopher-king of the Republic rested on a confident metaphysics. Once that confidence cracks, the politics must crack with it. In Plato's last and longest work, The Laws, the philosopher-king is quietly gone. In his place, written law, slowly amended, binding even the rulers. Second-best governance for second-best knowledge. This is the deep coherence of Plato's project. Logic, epistemology, ethics, politics, they all bend together when metaphysics bends. You cannot reform one floor of the building without the others adjusting beneath you. Return now to Antiphon and his horses. Some people, when they see the limits of philosophy, walk away. Plato saw those limits more clearly than almost anyone, and did not. He kept the forms to the end, not because he had refuted his own critique, but because the alternative was silence, and silence cannot teach. The forms, even broken, are the best bridge we have to what cannot be said. Philosophy, in Plato's mature vision, is not the discovery of final answers. It is the disciplined art of speaking as far toward the ineffable as language will carry you, and knowing exactly where it stops.